Hey everyone, Michael Miller here, one of the co-founders of the Braveheart Men's Movement, a movement of men that are committed to spiritual development, creating the life of their dreams, creating an inclusive world, and being loving men that live from their hearts. And I'm here with Jean-Marc Dedeyne, and
Yes.
I worked so hard on that last name. Who's an incredible man that our paths have intertwined mystically throughout the years. Um, but he's a man that's building a brand aligned with his spiritual mission,
Yes.
and it's a really beautiful thing. And so we're going to get some of his wisdom and just have a real talk about what it's like to be building that kind of brand.
hmm
So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Nice.
Yes. We've been knowing, uh, as you say, our path cross. This is the second time, and it's a real pleasure to see that uh, we are both inspired to serve a greater purpose and to connect people with uh, with the origin, with I call it for me with God, and connect that purpose and their brand with God. And but at least I'm very inspired and to share my testimony and my story.
Yeah. And so for those of you out there listening, Jean-Marc and I originally connected years ago when we were both working on companies that were assisting international students
hmm
in adapting to American culture, business, etc. And I was in a very different place. None of this conversation was a part of my life. Um, and and I saw him on LinkedIn just like a couple weeks ago and saw how aligned we were again and just thought, wow, how incredible for this man to be on this work now. But so the viewers have a chance to get to know you a little more. Could you just give a little background of who you are and how you got into your line of work?
Well, I was born on an island called Martinique. It's a French island, and at the age of so that's where I grew up, surrounded by nature. I love horses, and I always has a keen interest in what was going on outside of my islands, and that eventually led me to being extremely interested in intercultural relationships. And eventually, at 18, I relocated to France. That's where usually the people of my age would move to for higher education. And I pursued a path, working in the as a salesman, selling computers. But at one point of my life, maybe 13 years later down the road, I realized that I was not fulfilled by what I was doing. It was great financially, but I was not fulfilled, and I knew inside of me there was a quiet voice that was just waiting to 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 scream and to tell the world that I wanted to make a difference. It was a great career, but it was not. I didn't think I was making a difference in the lives of others, which led me to I quit my job. I volunteer to quit the job, and I had that dream at 18 to relocate to the U.S. So eventually, when I quit my job, I volunteered to move to the U.S. to Los Angeles, to start a company, learn how to build a company, and eventually start this company, which eventually I became sensitive about. I was always sensitive to the needs of others. I didn't necessarily know, but I spent a lot of time helping or guiding some people just at a personal level. never as a professional or career coach or thing of that nature. But during my study, I I noticed that both my experiences and my interest in building relationships could be beneficial to some of the foreign students who were classmates, and I started a company. And eventually, some years later, I became obsessed about helping others find something they truly love, something that matters, which was the case for me. And I realized, I say, I don't want them to spend 30 years of their life doing something that they follow for the sake of the world or their parents, but something they truly love where they can make a difference in the life of others. And from that grew to something with bigger with expatriates, and eventually through different personal experiences, I and very challenging experiences, I found myself at a place where I was not only broken but also searching for deeper meaning about the meaning of my life.
So, and to
And
clarify, you felt broken.
yeah, I felt broken. I felt broken.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I felt broken both by the experience of life. I lost my dad, and eventually I was also hit. I have a tragic accident where I almost lost my life, and all those elements, and having a business where I I knew I wanted to make a difference, but I don't know if I was reaching the right people. So at least my message was not resonated the way I wanted, and I felt broken at one point after my dad passed, and I just stopped for 4 months, and that brought me to the awakening about what for me God was expecting from me.
Can you tell us about that moment, or if it was
Yes,
over time?
that moment. Basically, there were two moments. Um, when I moved to the U.S., I remember going to a training. They were teaching people who were leaving the company how to make a transition into the workplace. And I took a class. It was about the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling the coach, I feel like I need to build a stronger relationship with God, because we had to align our goals for the future. And I told the coach, in the future, when I move to the US, I will build a stronger relationships. And just after months, after maybe 2 months after I moved to LA, my mother called, say, yeah, your father had 3 major stroke. We almost lost him. So from that moment, I started to pray more than I ever prayed before, and it's almost like I felt like something of me. I was losing something of me, and eventually my father survived, and for 8 years, and after 4 strokes, but he was fully handicapped. So, but I know every time the phone would ring, I would be anxious. So, although this tragic moment, through that I started to build stronger. And I was also in a relationship where my former girlfriend put efforts to help me focus on love, on patience, and help me understand the words of God. Because before I would go to church, but I would not necessarily listen, and I was not to apply, and it was not even part of my mission. I was doing something they love, and I was still thinking about the world, and do something you love and your passion, but not necessarily connecting to the origin. And through that experience in her church, we read a book from a pastor, Pastor Toure, who he wrote a book called Purpose Awakening. And Purpose Awakening was a big aha moment for me. For 12 weeks, about 12 weeks, we study with a group of 5 people. We study each chapter of the book, and during each session, we would pray before and study the chapter and pray for each other. That was big. And during maybe a couple years later, I didn't know if I wanted to pursue that relationship with God. Something was not right with my former girlfriend. Sorry, and since I was very confused, I didn't know what to do. So I decided to do a retreat, a spiritual retreat to a Catholic church, and I was living for three days, and that was another awakening for me, because during that experience, the second day of the retreat, they invited us at the end of the second day to take a break of 15 minutes. And I can still see myself approaching the exit, and everybody, we were 40, everybody was following each other. And at the moment I stepped my first foot out, I could feel a little voice inside of me saying, Jean-Marc, stay by the church, stay in the garden. And remember, I was going there to find a response, to find a message, to get something, and I could see myself struggling and say, why should I stay there? Everybody's going out. So, but I was selfish, and with my ego, I said, no, I'm gonna go. And that was because that day, that was the voice of God for me. Was telling me, something is going to happen. Stay there. We just want to protect you. And very sadly, on my way back to the church, after 10 minutes, I got struck by a car. And that moment, and the months that follow, the time of physical therapy, the pain, and the questioning why I didn't listen to that voice, and the guilt, and then a transformation, a second transformation. The first one was when I almost lost my dad. The second one, when that accident happened. The transformation was growing, and eventually, a year later, I was able to walk again, to drive, and I felt the voice. Another time, I was going to a networking event, and on the freeway, I was listening to my mentor, Les Brown, who that day was talking with his daughter about the power of the inner voice, and why it's so important to pay attention. And at the moment, he starts saying the word of inner voice, and at one point, I had to change lane and get to another freeway. At the same time, that voice says, stay on your lane. Stay on your lane. It's okay if you mix the exit. It's almost like that voice is there to guide you and tell you which direction to do and prevent from something. And that day, I decide. First time I didn't obey. That day I decided to obey, and I avoided a major car accident. And
wow.
It continued. And the biggest transformation was after the loss of my dad. Because I realized, I said, okay, my business is not growing. I'm putting a lot of work. Uh, I'm not making money. It has nothing to do with the way I envision this life. I am constantly stressed uh, in my relationships. I'm not putting the efforts to grow this relationship. I don't love myself, and I don't. In the end, the people who truly love me, I don't spend time with them, and and uh, and uh, and after a call where my brother called and say, "Yeah, Dad, we just lost him." The whole I can't even imagine. And it was an afternoon, and I couldn't just speak, and I couldn't even imagine that my dad was no longer there. And that day, I was still with my former girlfriend, and I say, I need to go. I need to go. I jump on the plane the same night, and I say, I don't know when I'm gonna come back. And I left not knowing if I would come back. Seriously, and
Hmm.
even though I prepare things, and but I knew I would leave for a while,
Hmm.
and I had no interest to come back after the funeral, and that's the transformations. The real transformation start when you know something deeper is calling you. You got to stop.
Hmm.
You got to stop. You got to pause, and that was God telling me, I've been calling you for so long. I've been calling you and talking to you for so long. You listen, but not the way I want, and the transformation,
And
uh,
so,
uh, we'll start there. Hmm.
yeah, it's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that vulnerably. And the inner voice, like it's God for you, and for some, it's the inner voice or the universe or whatever. Um, but I think you put it beautifully in listening to it.
Yeah,
It's there for everyone,
yeah, indeed.
but it's just a choice of when we actually listen and hear, and everything
Yeah,
else is quiet enough.
yes, exactly. That's the word. Quiet enough. And this is all I was doing after I lost my dad. For months, uh, my mother quickly encouraged us to do a retreat. There was a retreat for men, and that was a big transformation to going to retreat with other men, praying and asking for clarification. And very soon, a friend of mine say, you know, I don't think it's good to stay like that and still by yourself in this room. Maybe you should exercise. Having this issue with my knee after the car accident, I can no longer do the type of exercise I was doing before. I love riding horses and running.
Hmm.
So she say, "How about you walk?" And I say, "Okay." uh,
Yeah.
really, yeah, took off.
And so, what have you noticed since? Um, I don't know how you would relate to it, choosing it or giving into it or surrendering, whatever word works for you. But what have you noticed since that moment?
First of all, a
Nice, beautiful,
Mhm.
and it's really beautiful, right? And I know so many people out there that really want that peace and serenity. So many people building brands.
Mhm.
Um, and so for you, like actually like giving in, um, or actually surrendering, um, as far as building your brand has gone,
Mhm.
what do you what blocks do you notice as you're building it that still show up for you? Nice.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful point, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people try to do it themselves and struggle
Yeah.
with it for a long time, and there are individuals out there that are there to support you in your mission.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, one thing that I hear come up with a lot of people building brands is wanting it to be built faster
Mm.
and have a larger impact. How do you notice that showing up for you, if at all?
Uh, I know he was not you fabricate something. It's fake, whether by checking the testimonial or
Yeah, that's really
hmm
beautiful. I can hear where you let go of your ego
hmm
and how that wanted it to look,
yeah,
and I think it's a beautiful thing that a lot of people come in and think like, oh, I want to have this huge impact on the world and everyone in the
mm,
world, and get so stuck on that they don't see the people right in front of them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And even those who are there are called to help and use. And I could see myself, and I was not always nice with my former girlfriend because I was so stuck with my idea. I'm gonna make this happen. Months and years to figure out. I say, wow, that's what she was, and she has been a blessing. She's my best friend. She's been a blessing and best friend today, and now uh, I, I it's worth it.
And you've mentioned surrendering a couple times. So I was talking to a friend the other day about surrender, and they
Hmm.
said, most people think it's just like a letting go, but you can actually actively surrender. And he said
Hmm.
one of those ways is through prayer, was one thing he
Mm.
mentioned. I've heard you say a number of times.
Yeah.
But and just for the guys listening out there that are like, I don't know how to surrender,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to them?
I would say uh, first, when I look at my experience, um, I know I should have listened more to my ex-girlfriend, even though she doesn't have necessarily she doesn't have the business background that uh, that I that I consider as being the most credible things to pursue or listen to. I would give more credit to a coach that her opinion
Mm,
and women has um, can easily or more easily uh, uh, turn into their intuition.
mm,
They may not have all the background and things, but they have this. Their intuition is probably more developed than for men,
mm,
and they have this notion of caring, truly caring,
mm,
and loving things unconditionally,
mm,
and something that we may not have all men. So, and that's essential. That essential, whatever venture you start, uh, service business, coaching business, whatever you do, that aspect is essential, and connecting with that love and incorporating that aspect. And she has a lot of intuition, and she was right. So that was the if you guys you have someone around you, your mother or a girlfriend or a friend, and don't hesitate. The person may not have the financial or business background, but the person can tap into the intuition and tell you, you may feel like it's the right things to do, but
mm,
I don't feel it. And many times she was right. Even the day when I left to do that retreat,
mm,
she told me, she said, Jean-Marc, I know we have a decision to make. I know you have a decision to make, but I don't feel it. Something is wrong in my spirit. I
mm,
don't feel it. And she felt at that moment, she didn't know what, but and when they called her, she knew something
yeah.
bad happened. So that would be prayer is the second advice. Every morning, I get up um, um, early in the morning, and around 5:30, I pray. I leave this house. I go before the sunrise to a mountain nearby, and I hike for about 2 hours. And I offer uh, the challenge that I have. I pray and I offer this challenge to God, and
Mm,
wait. And sometimes the response don't necessarily come at the same time, or sometimes the response come through things or experiences, or just letting your brain quiet for a little bit. This is the biggest thing.
mm,
So you want to be silenced, but you're praying, but at the same time you have so many things and ideas that around. So focusing on something that is outside, such as nature, could be helpful.
yeah.
Hmm.
So what I hear in that's it's really beautiful is a commitment to your own spiritual growth, your own relationship to your higher power, God, and there's a dedication in there.
Hmm.
So it's no surprise to me that you're so connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I see this a lot with guys too that are developing and growing a brand and being spiritual leaders, and is not actually being committed in that way or having that relationship. So thanks for setting that example.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
giving that advice. And then
Yeah, because it's key. Sorry
yeah,
because
go ahead.
that's very key, because I know at one point I was in between.
Hmm.
I was going to church, but I was not serving God. I was not putting my life in service to Him. I was it was almost like I was using God whenever I need something, when is the other way around. He knows the plan, and I'm only here as a servant. And through the work, through my relationship, through my life is supposed to bring His purpose closer. And that's how. And not too long ago, just and because there was something that said you can serve two masters, either you serve God or you serve money. And I was more on the other side, and for a long time of my life, not like I was chasing money and just no, but I was not dedicating my life to Him, and and He knows what is good, what I need, and how to get it. But about a week ago, or maybe 2 weeks, I came to the realization, and I told my former girlfriend, my best friend, I told her, and I start to tell people, I say, no matter all the challenges that I went through, I overcame that. That means God is not done for me. He's not done with me. I'm supposed to use all those lessons, craft that into a story to help others who are going through similar challenges but don't know. And through that story, show them that for them to overcome that, they have to return to God, and He will lead them. So, and that's all I can see my life today. And whatever happened after, but as long as I do this, I know I should be okay. I know I will be okay. And as human, I will probably still be worried. Okay, I'm going to pay the bill. I'm going to do this, but I should be. I have this faith, this belief that if I do that, I should be okay. The rest will take care of itself.
Beautiful. And that faith is what opens up so much possibility, so much freedom.
Yes.
When you're not in fear or worried about these things.
Yeah.
I wanted to hit on the point you said about tapping into the women around you, and as they're tapped into intuition. And I've noticed throughout your story that you know, your inner voice, your intuition, you're more in tune with, and there's a conversation of, you know, the feminine and masculine, right?
Yeah.
Two different sides, and the feminine is, in many spiritual beliefs, more intuitive, and the masculine's more of the doing, the action, the power. And most men don't develop the intuitive side or the emotions, the feelings, due to culture and other things. And it's totally something that, as a man, you can develop and grow into in a beautiful way to do just what you said. You're aligning your brand with that. You're trusting more. There's more faith. And it sounds like more direction.
Yes. And while you're saying that, I start to think, I understand now, because as I'm writing my book right now, there was a phrase where we say, even though I have a large family, but I was always surrounded by women. And my mother, my cousin, And I was always surrounded by women. And very often, the lady that I dated say, there is more this feminine side in you, and we're looking for more the man part. And but if now I know better, those relationships with women were always there to serve me, to help me understand the intuition question that we are discussing about today. And that's essential. It really give me sense, give me a reason why so many women surrounded me when I was growing up.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to listening, right? Your other advice, yes. Listening, and how hard it is to listen to everything that is around us, but it's there. It's always there.
It's always there. It's always there.
Just a question of when you open up to it.
Yeah, but at that time, when you are young, you are 6, 7, 8, 7, 10. You don't have you have experiences, but not as deep to show you that listening to. We never call intuition. Now I know the word, but so it's definitely something that men should incorporate. I'll learn how to develop, and I truly believe that women can help men develop that, and while they are building a relationship with God, if they call it God, or their spiritual growth.
Beautiful. And thank you so much for all the wisdom, Jean-Marc. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to be with you and your presence and calmness. And I'd like to end with just you giving like a message to, the guys out there that are building these brands, that are, in the quandary, and just like what you would have for them.
The message we are all here for a specific reason. And if we listen to the voice of the world, we will probably miss that. We might be highly successful, wealthy, all the things that you can imagine. We might be there. But I'm not sure in the end we will feel, we will have fulfillment. We will find this deep meaning. Today, more than ever, I know that this connection to God, for me, it's more important than all the rest, because when I have this connection with God, I can eventually do something, pursue my calling, and connect with that calling and serve something bigger. And the best way I found to get there is through prayer or meditation, silence, and making meaningful decisions from who you are associated with, where do you live, what do you do, your downtime, but taking time to think, because we all have greatness within us. We are all there for serve something, and it's important to start as early as possible and look for help, because it's and don't do that by yourself. Don't be lonely trying to figure out all of that. But the only place you could be lonely is when you take the time in the morning. It's better to do it early in the morning. Before, my ritual was I get up and I turn to my phone and I check what was the messages. So basically, the the world was more important than my connection to God, and basically whatever was there would eventually guide the rest of the day, whether it's a good message or a bad message, or whether you watch the news, whatever is there will guide you the rest of the day. It's no longer the case. So I spend 2 hours praying. We don't have to do 3 hours if you don't have 2 hours. But when I give to God the first moment of my day, even something bad could happen, it gives me more peace to go through life, and more serenity and peace. The thing that we discussed earlier.
Great. Well, thank you for that message. Beautiful.
Welcome.
And where can men find you online if they're wanting to connect or read about you or listen?
They can go to my website, which is www.jmdedeyne.com.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing today, Jean-Marc.
You're very welcome.
It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Amazing. And I know this is going to support anyone that listens. So thank you.
All right. You're very welcome.